afternoon, everyone. Very excited about us having the entire middle school down here. It's very important to us. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming. What you're here today is to see about the history and the importance of this steel beam that was in one of the World Trade Centers that collapsed in 9/11/2001. We're going to have several things that go on here that are important to the fire and police. The beam was obtained in August 2011 on the 10th anniversary. We just brought it back to Tiffin, displayed it. The memorial was dedicated roughly about a year later and was built on donations. Everything you see here was donated to the committee. So I ask now if you would please stand for the national anthem, Pledge of Allegiance, and Wreath laying with our local first responders. This time we're going to have the wreath laying ceremony. You can be seated. This time we're going to have the choir sing the second song for us. choir for that beautiful song. At this time, I'd like to welcome Tiffin Mayor Aaron Montz to tell us about community impact and how September 11th, 2001 changed our day-to-day life.
Thank you, Cris. Thank you, students, for coming out here today to join us. September 11th, 2001 was a day many of us will never forget. I can remember, I was not much older than most of you, sitting in a high school classroom, sophomore year, 15 years old, and we had the TV on because a plane had just run into one of the two towers at the World Trade Center. And from that, we unfortunately got to see the second plane strike the second tower. It was something that no matter how much you try to forget, it just never goes out of your head. Hopefully that's something that none of you will live to see. We've worked as a nation to come together and rat out terrorists and defeat them where they hide, so that you no longer have to deal with this sort of thing in your everyday lives. It impacted not only New York City, not only Washington, D.C., but also the lives of Tiffinites. People across the nation no longer felt safe. We felt unsafe right here in Tiffin, Ohio. If they could strike some of the most secure facilities in our country, being the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon, the signal and the strength of our United States military, if that building could be struck by terrorists, was any place in America safe? We've proven that we have gotten the terrorists. They're on the run, but we still have work to do. This memorial brought the community together and continues to bring the Tiffin community together. We have come together on this site far too many times to remember countless tragedies, from the Sandy Hook school shooting to the Pulse nightclub massacre in Orlando, Florida. This site has brought Tiffinites together. People who do not even know one another coming to this site, putting their arms around one another, hugging each other, and even sharing tears together. This site is hallowed ground. Whenever you are here, remember the sacrifices that our men and women make every day to keep us safe. It's not just the United States military, but it's also our men and women who serve us here in the local community. Our policemen, our firemen. They're the ones working day in and day out to keep all of you safe. You see the live images that are going around right now. We just saw it a few weeks ago in Houston, Texas. We're seeing it right now in Florida with the hurricanes. These brave men and women don't get to stay home with their families when tragedy is striking. They're at the station, ready to go to work to save the lives of all of us. And that is why this site is here, to remember those brave police officers and firefighters who continue to do the job, who answer the call no matter what the risk, no matter what the cause. They are here to help us all. Remember that as you venture onto this site and look at this beam here today. These men and women behind me, they're the ones fighting to keep our community safe day in and day out. Thank you.
This time I'd like to have Joe Gosche, our memorial secretary, come up.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. It really means a lot. One word that comes to mind when I stand out here is the word hero. And I wanted to bring your attention to the American flag that's at half-mast today. One of our heroes is Richie Martin. Richie Martin is a Tiffin native and a captain in the U.S. Air Force. He generously donated the flag that his flew crew over Iraq on the last day of the Iraqi Freedom New Dawn campaign on the last C-130 out of the country. This flag that's flying today was touched by the soldiers as they left that aircraft, and we fly it here every 9/11. That donation means a great deal to the community, and we are so honored to have accepted that. Another of my heroes is Shane Parsons. In 2004, Cindy Parsons' son, Shane, entered the U.S. Army, and served honorably in a decorated infantry brigade. In 2006, he was critically injured in Iraq. And I will note that he had volunteered for that mission on his day off. After Shane returned home for treatment, Cindy became his caretaker and a strong advocate for wounded service members. Cindy participated in the Wounded Warrior Project Caregiver Summit in Washington, D.C. in 2009. While there, she lobbied Congress for the passage of the Caregiver and Veteran Omnibus Health Service Act of 2010, which is a bill that provides assistance and support for caregivers of injured servicemen and servicewomen returning from war. Cindy serves on the board of the Brain Injury Association of Ohio, and both she and Shane have participated in speaking events to educate others on traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder across the country. Because of her experiences, Cindy is passionate about promoting public awareness of our injured warriors returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. We are so very honored to have Cindy here today. Please help me welcome my friend Cindy Parsons.
Thank you, Jill. Welcome, everyone. I am truly honored to be a part of your ceremony today on this historic day. 16 years ago, today, we entered a new threshold of terrorism in the United States. It was then we realized nothing would ever be the same. I remember that morning very well. I remember being afraid, confused, and feeling my heart sink to the bottom of my stomach as I'm watching the Twin Towers fall and innocent lives taken. Heartbreaking memories of the first responders that moved towards the attack, not away, towards, for those in need with speed and courage and compassion. It was when the events replayed over and over on TV when my son, my only child, Shane, whose father died of brain cancer, he didn't ever meet him. He was 6 months old when that happened. I remember Shane pacing back and forth in front of that TV, just pacing. And as he paced, shaking his head, and he said, how can they come here? How can they attack our country? How can they take innocent lives? How dare them? How dare them take people that are innocent? I have to do something, Mom. I have to do something. He was in high school. And 1 month after graduation, by the way, I tried to talk him out of going into the service. He did join the United States Army and left the boot camp in July of 2004 to follow in both of his grandfather's footsteps who served in the United States Army. Because freedom should never be taken from anyone. He made a personal commitment to protect our values and our freedom. He just know that in the pit of his stomach, he had to do something. And on September, he ended up going to the Army for 2 years training, Fort Benning, Georgia, various other places that I'm unaware of. But on September 30th, 2006, he volunteered for a mission to prevent anti-coalitions from attacking our troops. This was actually his day off, like Jill told you. It was his day off. He heard a couple of his brothers arguing that day, and he told them, I know you're having an issue, let me take this mission, you stay back. And as he drove the lead Humvee to prevent anti-coalitions from attacking our troops, an improvised explosive device was detonated. This was meant to take a tank out. Imagine being in a Humvee and the significance of a blast that's meant for a bigger vehicle. It resulted in devastating injuries, resulting in his cardiac arrest multiple times. His gunner to the left or to the right of him, lost his left leg, had arm and facial damage. Shane, when that blast occurred, immediately severed his left leg above his knee and severed the right leg. He survived because of the dedication of our military medics, the medical team, and not without deep sacrifice. For you see, they did have to amputate his right leg to save his life, and he was 21 years old when that happened. He had just come home for his R&R after he let all of his brothers in his unit go before him. I kept saying, when are you coming home? He said, you know what? Let them go. They have families, they have children, they have wives, they have girlfriends. I don't. Let them go. So it was always about somebody else, not him. When they amputated that right leg and they called me, the parent gets the call that they never want to get, telling me that my son was critically wounded and they had to amputate his other leg to save his life. I knew, as a mom, that I had to do everything possible to help my son. You know how parents out there, you're going to do whatever it takes. Your parents, young ladies and gentlemen, your parents are there for you. They want to help you in anything that you need help with. Remember that. Your teachers, your family members, it's important to know that they're there for you. Shane sustained the most devastating injury, lost both of his legs, but that wasn't what his fight was going to be. It was because he had cardiac arrest twice, meaning his heart stopped. So blood and oxygen didn't get to the brain, so he has what you call a severe anoxic traumatic brain injury. On top of that, post-traumatic stress disorder, and ended up with severe depression. One thing the enemy didn't take was his determination, his love of people, his love of children, his love of his community. But it did result in lifelong memory losses, cognitive deficits, meaning he could never learn the same. He can't drive anymore. He forgets things. But one thing it didn't take, like I said, determination, was to never give up. Those months and days and years of rehabilitation to relearn how to brush his teeth, to comb his hair, to use the bathroom, to get dressed, to feed himself, use a wheelchair. It wasn't easy. And then the post-traumatic started coming in because some of those memories started flooding back. And when those memories came back, they were horrific. They came in little pieces, not all at once. Sometimes a trigger would set that off. I want you ladies and gentlemen to know that veterans suffer every day in the invisible wounds of war. And sometimes a smell, a sight, a sound can trigger those memories that are deeply embedded in their mind, and they can't help it. And they have to live with that the rest of their lives and try to move on, and it's very difficult. But Shane learned that he allowed to let others reach out to him. He learned that, for one example, our military veteran service organizations reach out to him and give him that help that he needed. One was Wounded Warrior Project. They helped him to connect, serve, and empower, and to solidify that the words that to never give up mean something. And many of them are still hidden behind closed doors because they don't have the strength to come out forward to say, hey, I need help. Maybe it's one of your friends that is struggling. Maybe it's one of your family members that's struggling. Always remember, be there for them. Reach out to them. It's so important. Continue to make those significant improvements in a human life. Even in Tiffin community, you can make a difference. This memorial is a reason for you to always remember and never forget those sacrifices. Today, because of those support that you get from our first responders, your teachers, your family members, they know that they're there for you to provide that support when needed. Today, I can honestly, Shane, my son Shane, is truly amazing. He has accomplished more than most people in their life. He downhill skis with no legs. He can climb walls, those rock climbing walls with no legs. He fishes. He hunts. He hand cycles. He did 2 days of hand cycling from Corpus Christi, from San Antonio to Corpus Christi in 2 days against coastal winds, just using his arms. He helped coach junior high and high school football in his community where we live in Fostoria, Ohio, and also helped initiate the very first all-wounded veteran sled hockey team where they sit in sleds. All because he didn't believe in the words, never give up. He still struggles. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is not the end. He still struggles. Sometimes the smell of diesel fuel will set him off and trigger a memory of war. Sometimes something along the road as we're driving will signal that could be a bomb, and it scares him. But he's learned to overcome those triggers and understand that there is a way to move on with his life. He still struggles, but I have a quote from Rose Kennedy, and I think this hits the nail on the head. It has been said, time heals all wounds. I do not agree. The wounds remain. In time, the mind, protecting its sanity, covers them with scar tissue and the pain lessens. But it is never gone. Those are the words of Rose Kennedy. Moreover, I can tell you that Shane has become a success story to himself by not giving up. He has now found a young lady, he's married, he just moved away 2 months ago to Washington State, where he got his first own house, and he plans to help another veteran open a coffee shop. So, what does that tell you? What it tells you, moreover, is determination to resiliency is a warrior's beacon to never give up. Just like this memorial. Let that be a beacon of light to remind you of those sacrifices and to never give up. If you remember anything that I told you today, life can be brutal, we know that. Life can be tough. Maybe you don't want to do your homework. Maybe you don't want to go to school because you don't feel good. But life can be tough. But you can choose to be bitter, or you can get better. Be the beacon of light for those in need. And remember to never, ever give up.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for sharing your moving story. Thank you, too, for the sacrifices you and Shane have made for our country. Now I'd like to invite Jim Roberts, Adjutant, Seneca County United Veterans Council, forward to speak. Mr. Roberts is a former sheriff, a current First Ward councilman for the city of Tiffin, and proudly served his country in the United States Army.
Thank you. I want to tell you, first of all, what an honor it is for me to be standing here with the firefighters behind me, the city police officers, my fellow veterans, members of the United Veterans Council across the way, and any other veterans that might be in this audience. And especially, I want to thank you. I noticed as I was sitting there how quiet and respectful you all were. And I don't know how many students there are here today, but that's really something that many, thinking back to my school days a long, long time ago, that many people, that many students can sit there and be that quiet and that respectful. Thank you, and I salute you for that. On 9/11, 2001, I was working as superintendent of second shift in a plant in Finley. And I was taking my usual little nap in the morning on the couch. I hadn't gotten enough sleep at night because I usually didn't get home till about 3 o'clock. And my wife called me. It was sometime between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And she said, Debo, sometime if you want to know, I'll tell you what Debo is. But Debo, turn on the TV, will you? She said they're saying a plane flew into one of the Twin Towers in New York. See what's going on if you can. Just as I turned the TV on, I saw that sickening sight of the second plane slicing into the second Twin Tower. And I can't really describe the feeling that I had. Now, I'm living in the United States of America. I'm supposed to feel safe. I'm supposed to feel secure. And I just can't describe it. how I felt. I'm one of those people in the audience here today that has the misfortune that I lived through two surprise attacks on the United States of America. The first one was back in 1941 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Now they're our allies and one of our closest friends. Times change. The second one, of course, then was 9/11, 2001. It was my job in Findlay as the superintendent of second shift. They called me in early and they said, we want you to get your shift together, say a few words, and try to reassure them. Everybody is just, they don't know what's going on. Well, I always learned fewer the words, the better. So I got them all together. I reassured them that we were the greatest country in the world. This would be solved. I didn't think it would take this long, but I was mad. I guess that's the best way to put it. I was just plain mad, but I didn't know whom to be mad at. And that's a very, very sick feeling. So anyway, then you start turning to family and everything else and worrying about them. My son was driving truck at the time. He was making deliveries in New York City. So I worried about him. I worried what was happening there. When I found out that they were using planes as missiles, I had a good friend in Cleveland whose wife worked for Continental Airlines, which has now disappeared, as a stewardess. And that was her territory. She flew to the East Coast. So I started wondering, where is she? How is she? And that feeling still continues with me today as I worry about how are we going to attack this enemy, this unknown enemy, this chicken enemy. Thank you. There is absolutely nothing worse. Dastardly was the old word we used to use on something like that. But anyway, you know, when I look at you out here and I think that there wasn't a single one of you alive when they struck the Twin Towers. You have not lived in a day of peace. We've constantly been at war. And my final words to you is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we haven't been able to settle this world and settle the conflicts of the world to make it safe for you. And I hope that by the time the oldest of you here graduate, we will be in peacetime. And you won't have to worry about going overseas or anything to protect this great country of ours. So I'd like to close with the words, God bless America. And then I stop and think, and I think when we say that sometimes, it just becomes commonplace. Because I figure, am I making a statement, or am I actually making a request to God to bless this great country of ours? And I think sincerely, we all, down in our heart, are asking God to bless this great country of ours. Thank you for the time. It's indeed an honor to take part in this, and all your days be happy days. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Adjutant Roberts, for your thoughts today and also for his service to our country. I'd like to invite Chief Fred Stevens of the Tiffin Police Department and Chief Captain Nutter, John Nutter, of Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division forward to share their thoughts.
I'll be quick. I've done this a couple times this morning already, and I know that Captain Nutter has a layout of it. As I look around, what Adjutant Roberts said about the children here not being alive at the time, we took off the years as the years go by from 2001, and we're 16 years into this. And it's important that we have ceremonies like this to dedicate and remember those souls on that day, and ever since that day, that have fought for the freedoms that were going about the normal day of activity on 2011 and didn't think anything like this was going to happen that day. So it's important that we gather on this day, that we have a site, like the mayor said, that is hallowed grounds for us in Tiffin to get a sense of what happened that day, to remember with you and to pass on that remembrance and that dedication of servitude that was offered up that day by everybody, not just public safety, not the EMS and the firefighters and the police, but the civilians that gathered that day, shook off the events of that day, and just pitched in and helped. Not only from New York, but from all the states around. They just got in their cars and went there and decided to help out, whether they were called there or not. So again, I would like to echo what everybody's been saying, and thank you for your attention today. Thank you for the teachers and the staff bringing you here to allow you to partake in the ceremony today. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, how do you follow that? I want to thank the mayor for his kind words about firefighters and police officers. I want to thank you guys for being here. Let's, first of all, everybody stand up for a second. Shake out the cobwebs. I was getting cobwebs even standing there. I feel a little better. Okay, sit back. Hopefully that helped the circulation go on a little bit. Everybody good? I see some people move places, found a better place to sit. Good deal. Okay. You know, there's been a lot of kind words said up here today, and I appreciate every one of them. As you walk past the front of the memorial, you'll see it's an all patriots memorial, what it says on it. I don't know if any of you have ever given any thought to what all patriot, what a patriot is. The dictionary defines it as a person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and its interests with devotion. Pretty strong word, but what does it mean to you guys? None of you are firefighters yet. I'm sure there will be some of you. None of you are police officers yet. I'm sure that'll happen too. I'm sure a lot of you will become teachers, doctors, nurses. You can be a patriot in all those professions, right? Firefighters, I believe, are patriots. We fight for our way of life, to preserve life, as do police officers and doctors and nurses and teachers. I want to challenge you guys at your age now to be a patriot. How can you be a patriot today? Well, you can be a patriot when you see someone being bullied. You can stand up for that person. You can be a friend to that person. Defend them. Love them. Right? And that's challenging in today's world, because with the internet and all the information that you guys have at your fingertips, you're going to find a lot of voices that maybe don't feel that way. You have to be careful about the things that you buy into nowadays, especially. You know, I feel like the United States stands for freedom, and I believe that patriots defend freedom. I believe that any kind act is defending freedom. So, when you go back to your classrooms and you get about your regular days and all the hard stuff that you have to do. Remember, there are people out here defending you, and that gives you a certain responsibility to defend others. And when you come down here to visit this memorial on your bicycles or your skateboards or your hovercrafts, whatever it might be, remember that this is a solemn place of reflection on the events of that day that were horrific, obviously. But we still need to remember them in order to preserve the memories of the people who gave their lives that day. Many of them gave their lives not knowing exactly what was going on, why they were in the situation that they were in. But there were many countless acts of heroism that happened that day from regular people, not all firefighters and police officers and stuff. So remember to be solemn when you're here and treat it with respect, the respect that it deserves. Okay? I appreciate every one of you coming out and sitting through the little bit of heat today. I can tell it's getting warm. So I appreciate you being here, and thank you for being so patient. Have a good day.
Thank you, Chief Stevens and Captain Nutter, for your words and thoughts. At this time, I'd like to have the middle school presentation committee come forward.
We have a small gift to give to Tiffin PD and Fire Department to thank you for your service. Please, can I come in? And we need a round of applause for our servicemen.
I'd like to have Jill Gosche come forward for a few words.
A lot of people came together to make this day possible. I hope I don't forget anyone. If I did, your efforts are very much appreciated. First of all, could you please join me in one more round of applause for all of our speakers today? We'd also like to thank Kenny Water. They donated some water, which as you're leaving, you'll get to have. Heidelberg University lent us the speaker system for today. Tiffin Park and Rec provided the trash cans down on Frost Parkway. Tice Septic Cleaning delivered the portable toilets for you. The police department helped with the road closures for everyone's safety. And the city of Tiffin made sure this road was closed. So if we could give those folks a round of applause. Finally, we owe a huge thank you to a teacher of yours, and I know she doesn't want to be thanked, but Mrs. Dedinger, would you please stand? She has worked incredibly hard on this, and it's just amazing that she's made this happen. As we close, you are going to ride back on the bus that you came on. So hang tight until your teachers tell you to dismiss. If you would like to get closer to the beam, please just check with your teacher on your way out to see if you can come up here to get a little bit closer. Finally, our ceremony will close today with a rifle salute and taps. You actually can't see them, but if we could give a round of applause to our United Veterans Council in the back. Close our ceremony here in a moment with the rifle salute and tap, but after you please stand, you'll then be dismissed by your teacher. Thank you for attending today.
Yes, ma'am.